Okay, we're ready to take some questions from the audience to our four speakers. Does anybody want to go first? Rune?
I have a question for Mr. Dolan. Yeah, well, I've been wanting to ask you this, Richard, for quite some time. We're very tired. I'll try to formulate this as good as I can. In 2001, the Disclosure Project was rolling in America, led by Stephen Greer. And what I've heard gained quite a momentum at that time. I don't know if that is true. Or at least had some influence on the media. Some months later, the attack on the World Trade Center happened and sort of threw the world into panic and fear of terrorism. And we sort of bombed the shit out of, well, 2 countries that I know of. 8 years or so later, when we had bombed the shit out of that, the global economic crisis was brewing. It seems to me that there may be a force that always wants to keep us into fear. To your knowledge, have any of your sources, or I guess I'm asking you to speculate on this, could this be related to this topic, you know, to keep the global people focus away from the UFO and focused on fear?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I follow you. So the question is 9/11 in some way related either directly to the disclosure press conference of May 2001, or, and then more generally, are these types of false flag and fear-based operations designed to keep us in ignorance about UFOs? First of all, I will go to my grave stating openly that I know, as much as any rational mind can know, that 9/11 was some kind of inside job. And I've said this for many years. In fact, to my knowledge, I was the first UFO researcher in my country to start talking about it. I got stopped at airports for 2 years because of this. They never give you an answer. They would let me fly, but they would just make me wait like 15, 20 minutes every time I would fly. It got to be annoying. My father worked at the World Trade Center, actually. He had the day off. He was a retired police officer. The man he shared his job with was killed. It was a very personal thing for me. I'm from New York City. I don't believe, though, that was directly related to the press conference, the disclosure conference. I do believe it was done in order to destroy my country. That is, to create a kind of new form of fascism, which is well underway. I think it was done in order to justify 2 wars that would never, ever have been able to be justified otherwise. And it was done to create a legal revolution from above, all of which has been done. And it is necessary to create a fear-based society in the U.S., in their opinion, because otherwise you'd have a lot of angry, uppity Americans right now angry about the loss of their jobs going to overseas and the basic destruction of the lifestyle that Americans have become accustomed to, which is now going away. So in order to facilitate that process, you've got to scare the shit out of people, pardon me. You have to beat them down with a stick year after year after year. And that has been done, and there's been no change with one president to the next, obviously. So I don't think it's related to UFOs. The disclosure press conference, I remember when that happened. I was a new guy in UFOs at the time. I followed it carefully. I think it could never have succeeded because it was a great idea, and I fault the execution of it. It's easy to be critical when you're not part of it, I realize, but I think it was a classic case of getting greedy. It's one thing to get 1,200 people in the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and get good witnesses to talk about the reality of this. That's enough for a day's work. But instead, there was an agenda. And whether we can agree or not with it, the agenda to ban space-based weapons, in my opinion, was a fatal mistake. Absolutely the wrong thing to do at that time, because that puts them at war with Donald Rumsfeld and the U.S. Pentagon. All right, let's fight one battle at a time. That's my attitude. And the other problem that I had with that was the rationale given by Dr. Stephen Greer, which was that we don't need space-based weapons because we know that these other beings are peaceful. Because if they weren't peaceful, they would have destroyed us by now. And I beg your pardon, but I don't find that logic persuasive at all. And the other thing about trying to ban space-based weapons, honestly, that would be like trying to stop technological advances in militaries around the world. You cannot do it. I mean, go back to the First World War. Look at the development of aviation. They start with reconnaissance aircraft, and then the other side thinks, well, we have to shoot them down. So they develop airplanes with machine guns on them. And then, you know, you develop bomber aircraft, and everything escalates. And weapons in space. Space is paramount. The center of gravity for all military operations is not on the ground, it's in space. And if you control space, you control warfare. That's why the US won the Gulf War in 1991, because they controlled space. So there is never, ever, ever going to happen where the US military is just going to walk away from that. So by having a press conference, I mean, we can all probably think, yes, let's get rid of weapons in space. I'm fine with that. But it's a ridiculous argument to make politically in Washington when you're trying to do something else anyway. You're trying to get a world that thinks UFOs are bullshit to take it seriously, and so it was a classic case of overreach. So it was never going to happen. I don't think 9/11 was related to it. The last thing I'll say, because I don't want to hog this microphone, is that there is a constant effort to ridicule the UFO phenomenon in the mainstream. And we know for sure that the CIA has had assets within global media for years and years and years. We know this. It's out in the open, it's in academic libraries, so that happens. So there are always proxies in the media whose job it is to ridicule and disable the UFO phenomenon. That's how they do it. They don't need really to use secrecy anymore. Not really, they just make fun of it, and that works.
Hello. I would like to hear your thinking or thoughts about what are they doing coming to contact us. Are there any reason, are there different different reasons why they are coming to the Earth?
This is something many of us can answer. I mean, we can all probably contribute to this. Does anyone want to talk about this?
So your question was, I'm sorry, you? Why are they here? If they are trying to contact us, I have the feeling that from the many cases I've studied, that they do not intentionally try to make contact with us. On the contrary, it seems like they would zip off as soon as there's a camera or anybody else. But still, the question is, what's their motivation behind that? And that's an interesting thing that when I first heard that, when I first interviewed Paul Hellyer, the former Canadian defense minister back in 2008, he said they're here because of the nuclear technology. And I thought, well, okay, you know, how do you substantiate that? But it was an interesting statement. And then lately, I've come across so many cases. I haven't shown you the one radar trace that I still had. That was not in my presentation, where you see UFO traces near a nuclear power plant. But then you also see, just recently, the Australians released a document where there's a UFO near a nuclear or weapons site. And then the most fascinating thing is that, for me, is that I just recently published the German translation of a French presentation of Javier Passot, the director of the French official UFO program. And they have been making statistics for decades. And in their statistics, it says that UFOs are especially interested in nuclear sites whatsoever. So that is an official statistics from the French government, if you want. So question is, and also you also mentioned that they showed up in the 50s, especially, you know, over nuclear sites. So what does it mean? I don't know. Does it mean they want to take, you know, they want to control how far we are in terms of that technology? Do they want to prevent us doing any harm to their whatever? I have no idea, but it seems to be, to me, there seems to be something with nuclear technology.
I just want to add one point to that. If I was an advanced intelligence in the universe and I was able to travel to other star systems and I was watching another civilization that just developed nuclear weapons, I would be very much interested in what they were doing, especially if they were also starting to travel into space and they will constitute a threat to my civilization. So that's my speculation to that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Just a short commentary. The case I mentioned about this woman Anna, who had this experience in Guatemala. The man they met, Ben, he claimed to be called Ben Austin. He also claimed to work in our nuclear energy somehow. That was his claim. I don't know, but it's an interesting combination here. Maybe he told they were interested in what we were doing to this planet, and they didn't want us to destroy it. If that was for their own reasons, I don't know, but that's what he claimed.
May I add one thing?
Yeah.
Very quickly. I would just add that if you look at humanity for century after century after century, we had very low basic technology, and in the last century we've really developed some amazing technology, and we're obviously not done. Not just nuclear, but look at the future of computing, and the future of artificial intelligence and nanotech and quantum computing, which may actually is theorized to be being used right now at the NSA's new data collection center, that's what they call it, in Utah, where they have every single email that not only I have written, but probably that you have written, who knows. Anyway, we're developing a capability now that's going off the charts, so to speak, and any other intelligence that's able to observe us, I would think, is realizing that we are about to leap into their world, as it were. And maybe not on equal terms, but maybe in a way that we might be an issue for them. So I would think that we're the greatest show right now in this part of the universe, personally.
Just about the establishing contact. If we see Fatima, that was some kind of trying to reach contact. But there's not only Fatima. We also have Lourdes and several other places around the world with similar events. So maybe one of the species, we don't know how many, has some type of trying to establish contact in a, I don't know, that's that way, I don't know. Avoiding too much people, too much cameras, but like this in Fatima, there was 2 shepherds, 2 little children, 3 little children, you see? But of course there are also the alleged reported abductions, several types of abductions. That's also some sort of contact, you see? So, I don't know.
Hello. This is kind of a question that everybody could chip in on too, but the whole thing about all the evidence over the years, it seems like we're always close to getting something and then it slips between the fingers. Doesn't it sometimes seem like a joke that's running? Running and running, you go 100 years back, you find similar cases where, we almost proved that the airship was there. And even now with more advanced technology, video cameras, I know you don't have a camera on you all the time, and the phone, it takes a little bit of time to get it out and prepare and even get good images. But doesn't it seem like that there's something always preventing? I'm kind of asking this kind of in connection with the first question. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's like a fighting between the ones that want to keep the truth and the ones that want to know the truth. You see, but also the ones that want to keep the truth always try to win it through faith. It's not a matter of faith, of belief, because it's not a matter of religion. It's a matter of accepting the facts, and the proofs are there. We see in Portugal the military speaking openly about it. So there's no taboo. Maybe the press, the media, is in some way controlled in order to divert the attentions. But if you want to know, just go there, and you find it.
But I actually mean in cases which are more than just explainable by government cover-ups. I mean some of kind of like impossible cases, almost, things mysterious.
There's some excellent video cases right now that I personally think are legitimate. I'm thinking of Turkey, 2008. All right. I was afraid of that one for a while because it just seemed too good. Really, if you know what I'm referring to, it's just incredible. But I currently believe that that's legitimate UFO, and it's unbelievably good video. It's got a lot of witnesses now supporting it over the Sea of Marmara there, and so what? Why doesn't that do it? You might ask, and it's a fair question. It's not that we don't have the video and the evidence and the statements. As I say, any reasonable mind, when you put all of this together, has got to say it's real, and whoever they are, they're here. But what we've learned is that, first of all, ask yourself, what would constitute proof, and who's authorized to declare something to be proof? It's a good question. That's a political question more than a scientific question. Who is authorized to say that this is proof? Apparently I'm not, because if I were, I would have declared it already. I have declared it. No one listens. None of these other gentlemen here. So, we look to our political our talking heads in the political office. In my country, it's Obama. Here, it's other people. And none of those people have made it. And, one other example I'll just tell you, like I mentioned the Kennedy assassination earlier. In America, like 80%, I think, of all Americans, and like 100% of the rest of the world knows that there was a conspiracy to kill John F. Kennedy. And it doesn't matter. Why? Because officially speaking, the truth is that one guy did it alone, even though no one really believes it. No one believes that. But it's like, you've got this official truth and you've got the actual truth. And we have to figure out a way to break through the political control that's obviously standing in the way.
And I want to add to that I think it was back in 2009 that two very respected sociological scientists. So they published a study, and that's, or not a study, it was a scientific paper in which they asked them the question, why is it that governments treat this subject like a taboo? And it was called UFOs and Sovereignty. And their hypothesis is that if governments cannot ever seriously consider the UFO question as something that they would discuss about, because it would withdraw the legitimacy of their governance. Because in the way our states, our nations, countries are organized, politics is organized, it means that power is always distributed among human beings. There's no, nobody has ever thought in that political system of the possibility that there might be some superior species coming that maybe, that might be 100, 1,000, 1 million, 1 billion years ahead in their evolution. And yeah, so people would start to ask questions. Basically, you know, if you have an advanced species coming to this planet, and this is, you know, this is my favorite question would be, you know, what's your highest tax rate? You know, and already, oh, you don't have taxes? Why? How do you pay your? Oh, you don't even have money. Oh, but I mean, how is your? But you know, or let's say, does the original sin also count for the aliens? You know, do they have to carry a veil like the Muslims, for example? And so those are questions that for religions would be really dangerous. So, and there's so many issues at stake here that it would completely reorganize the whole way we have thought our society, how our society has been organized so far. So, if I were the president of the United States and I knew that there was something going on and I wanted to keep my job, you know, I would stay silent, because it would not only be the last day in my office, it would be the end of the office itself.
Let me just add, I co-authored a book on exactly this topic. We called it AD, After Disclosure, and it was a whole attempt to study, A, how could disclosure even happen? Seems like it's impossible, but I think it's not impossible. And then B, what happens after that? And in the process of writing that book, that was, I call it the great adventure of my life, because really we had to think through it. We pretended we were like a think tank and asking not idealistic utopian questions, but trying to be practical and ask what actually would happen if this secret were to come out. And what we decided is that it would be just absolutely radical, revolutionary, transformative in every possible way, no matter who these other beings were, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent to us, that it would transform us politically in multiple ways, economically, in terms of our energy paradigm, and in terms of our spiritual / religious beliefs, in terms of our culture, everything, and everything becomes challenged. And for that reason, when we finished the book, it really hit me. Like, this is why there's the secrecy, because it's across the entire range of our civilization that things would change.
I think we're ready for the next question.
My name is Jared. I want to add something to the nuclear subject. I know that there are articles out there that, well, it's about scientists that are unable to explain that the high radiation that they have been measuring after the Fukushima disaster, that they have suddenly dropped. And also they have been, there's been a lot of UFO sightings around the area. So it seems like they are helping us on these problems. But that is something that you could maybe look into. And now for the question. Okay, yeah.
I really, you mean if they are helping us? Is that the question?
No, there is articles out there that show that the radiation level has gone very low, and they are not able to explain it. And at the same time, a lot of UFO sightings have been. Yeah, that's not. It's not a question. It's just.
No, I
just know about
haven't heard that. But
okay.
No.
Yeah. Well, my question is. One of my biggest concerns these days are the chemtrails that we see every day. Is the weather manipulation. And I want to ask any either of you if you know anything about this, and also some relation to the UFOs, maybe.
Well, I have nothing to say on that. Yes, anyone wants to comment?
No, well, I'll just very quickly. I don't think I know more than anyone else in this room on chemtrails. I mean, we're all interested in it. I've never really seen a direct connection to UFOs personally. Nothing that I think, oh, yes, absolutely. But I don't know. I mean, chemtrails are, I think, a real phenomenon. I think it's clandestine. And there was a case where the German military, didn't they admit that they were doing chemtrails, I think a couple of years ago. And and the British also. So, but I don't know. We need to look into it more.
Okay, I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to ask that I know an astronomer who spent his whole life at the Euro lab in South America somewhere trying to find some planet that could support physical life. And he's never found it. And it's like he's not even close to finding it within any area near us. And I think this is part of the enigma about the UFO phenomena, because if they're not coming from any physical, like water-based life that, or what we can understand as a system that would support physical life, then where are, or what are they coming from?
Well, in the last decade, you know, a lot of that's been transformed, of course. I mean, there have been many, many now extrasolar planets that are being detected, and many more every year. Our capabilities only in the last few years have gotten to a point where we really can detect Earth-sized planets. So we're just at the beginning. I think what the story is, as far as extrasolar planets, is how many we're finding now.
Can I add something? And I'd like to add something. It's true that they have not yet found a planet which shows the perfect conditions for life as we understand it to develop there. However, here on Earth, scientists have discovered so many interesting new developments in terms of how do you define life, because the scientists have discovered that life that exists not only exists in arsenic and an arsenic environment, but which is poison for us, but which even integrates this arsenic in its body, you know. And there's I just recently have written an article on this, and this is just amazing how many of these prerequisites fall apart and just turn out to be nothing but a mere humanocentric, anthropocentric concept of what life is actually all about, you know. And in our world, on our planet, it might be carbon based, you know, but you never know what. You know, the universe is so huge, and we're just this tiny little planet, and we know nothing about what life actually is, and we can even have serious doubts about our understanding of reality itself. Is it really only based on 3 dimensions plus linear time, you know? And all of those anthropocentric things are actually like things that prevent us from seriously considering the possibility of life in different forms that we have never thought about. Do you want to add something?
I think it's okay. I think it's important that we don't lock the UFO question to extraterrestrials. There are several options here. I think if we just talk about extraterrestrials, we are maybe little bit off. There are several options, and how can these people who obviously have this technology look like us and be among us if they come from another planet? I just give this as an example. I think we should not be too much into the ETH, the extraterrestrial theory. There are several possibilities: Earth-based aliens, parallel dimensions, paranormal phenomena. There are several options, and I think if we lock the UFO questions to extraterrestrials, we are a bit off, sort of. I think we should be open-minded to many possibilities here.
Yes, I think I've been a little disappointed that you are coming, and you are just saying, "Oh yeah, some people think they are there, and we cannot really decide." And I think the interesting thing is what you are talking about now. And you said that that this book you wrote, if we collectively would agree that there are UFOs or something, then that would change a lot. And I would ask all of you, has it changed you? You have been through all this. You have been there in 40 years, and you have gathered everything, and that's what I'm interested in. What has it done to you to know these things?
Well, that was a good question. Well, I think it has changed me in several ways. I'm more open-minded to possibilities today than I was before. I think this universe we live in is fantastic. I think it is a fantastic riddle that we can sit here and discuss something, that we have consciousness. I mean, I think consciousness is a fantastic riddle. I think the whole universe is so strange that I'm open-minded. I become more open-minded by studying this phenomenon. I'm more open-minded to paranormal phenomena, parallel dimensions, anything. But of course, I want facts. But I think it's very important that we look into these things, and hopefully they will change us for the better, to become more empathic, more open-minded, better citizens.
Now I don't have the microphone, but has it changed your senses? Can you sense differently?
Well, that's a difficult question. I try to be a good guy. I hope there are some others out there somewhere who's also into the higher intelligence conspiracy. No, I think basically this is a good thing, because it makes us think. It's sort of education through astonishment for many people who observe something like this. And I've talked to many witnesses who, after an observation, become changed. They start studying things they never studied before. And yes, I think basically this is a positive thing. And I hope it is, of course. And I hope I have a change for the better.
For me, it didn't change me, because it was never a doubt for me. Since childhood, I always believed that we were not the only ones. So I did not discover anything new in this path, but it, how do I say? It turned me more tolerant to other people. It turned me more. Led me to know how to hear other people, other opinions, and to research more profoundly this subject in order to explain it to even more people. You see, but it didn't change me in the inside, because for me it was always real. Okay.
It's a complex question, because we're all complex people. You know, my mother said to me once, "Richard, you have always been this way. When you were 10 years old, you were exactly this way." But really, this topic has changed me very basically. I remember I got into it in my early 30s, and I thought I knew everything. You know, I was very good at my university studies, and I thought I was ahead of the curve, as we say. And then I realized that my whole worldview was, let's say, either grossly inadequate or just wrong. The first year that I was in this field, I distinctly remember spending many nights literally lying in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep, because of two reasons. One, I was trying to reconfigure my whole worldview, which was not fun, because no one wants to do that. Who wants to rethink their, really, you know, you get to age 30, and that's so young. And even by then, people think, well, they've got it all figured out. I know how the world works. And they spend the rest of their lives filling in the blanks of what they think they already know. That's most people. And so then if you're in a professional environment, it's even worse, because you have to be smart, and you have to be responsible and fit in. And you don't want to rock the boat. I was 32 years old when I started this, and I just was upset, because I had to rethink my whole world. And then the second part of that is courage. You have to be brave, because you have to be willing to let go of what you thought was true. And that's a lesson I had to learn a bit. It was a little bit of fear when I started, and now I don't care. Now it's like in the movie The Matrix, where you take the red pill, and the red pill, you now see reality. I wish it were that easy, just take a red pill. What it really is like is, in this field, the first time I realized that I concluded that UFOs were real. That was like ripping open one veil. There it goes. And that was good for a little while. And then you stay in this field, and then you run into more strange things. And then you realize you got to rip another veil away, and then another one, and you just keep going. And at the point now, I don't care. Now I can rip the veils away without as much trauma as before. It's never easy, though. But that's really it. I think it teaches you fearlessness, which is the best thing.
Yeah.
Quick, Robert.
It has changed my life. Quick enough. just a quick commentary. Just a quick commentary. You know, when you first start to realize, as you said, Richard, that it's true, that it's real. You know, that obviously we are being visited by somebody, something. You know, you don't know whether it's time travelers, dimension, whatever. You know, it hits you really hard in your stomach. It's like, oh my God, you know, it's really. And then, you know, it's really fascinating for a while, but then you start to, I mean, I started to like dive into like more profound questions. You know, for me it was like a journey to questions, more profound questions that mankind has been asking itself for since the beginning of its existence. You know, where do we come from? What's our relationship to the universe? Where are we going to have dinner tonight? By the way, I mean, really profound questions, you know, and I think that, you know, and what I'm most fascinated with is actually the relation between reality and consciousness, because when you seriously deal with this UFO subject, you study the cases where those UFOs appear and disappear, where they want and how they want, and they do whatever they like. You know, then you start to ask yourself, what is reality actually all about? Is there maybe something like a parallel space which we aren't even aware of? Something like another dimension or something? Is there anything else? And what is the relationship with consciousness? And I think that the key to understanding the UFO phenomenon with all of its facets and things and of reality is consciousness research. And I think that this is the thing that will eventually change mankind like nothing that has ever come before, because the effect of mind over matter is scientifically proven. This is not a conspiracy theory or something. This is true, that we do create and co-create our reality. That's a scientific fact. Now the question is, to which degree, what time does it take for reality to transform when I do something with my consciousness? I could talk about this for ages.
I think we have to move on.
Exactly.
It's a very big topic. we only have time for a few more questions. We have one more here.
It's about this contact thing, which bothered me a little. About a couple of years ago, my knowledge about scientific questions is not that big, I must admit. I'm limited. But a couple of years ago, I heard in the radio that about 50 years ago, some government, FNU and whatever, had a big discussion about what are to be done if someone meets a UFO. And it was a lot of talking, and they had come to the conclusion that you was not supposed to contact them. And they also had a voting about one woman who was to be the representative from the Earthlings to the UFO people, and that this was a rule for all of us. I don't know if it's a joke or if it's something actually, or what. Maybe some of you could...
May I say something? I think you're referring to that woman from the United Nations...
Yeah. This was just a couple of years ago. Yeah. Right. It sounds like you know. The UN, there was some kind of resolution that stated in effect that, yes, if we make contact, the United Nations will have an office from which to conduct relations with these other beings. And this woman, you're saying, what was her name?
Maslan Othman.
Would be the designated representative for the world. So, you know, is that really how it will go down? Probably not. But
No, she refused this in a press conference
She refused?
days after. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
May I add something to this? And I also read this, and this is really interesting for me being a journalist, because on the very same day that news came out, something else happened that was significant for the UFO field, and that was a press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., the UFOs and Nukes press conference, where Robert Sellers and Robert Hastings, two researchers, one of whom is a witness himself to UFOs hovering over a nuclear test site, organized a press conference, and they had invited 5 more people, first-hand witnesses to UFOs over nuclear missile sites. And for me, it was really interesting to see that even though that press conference had been announced months before, that on that very day when it took place, suddenly the public attention was distracted to that news from that Mrs. Hoffman or whatever, who later denied that it was true. It was just disinformation. And in my opinion, this stinks. You know, I'm really suspicious. I really think that this was maybe an example of what we can see, you know, in terms of disinformation on a very large scale. And on such a large scale that even the journalists who do the report, they have no clue, because they do what they're being told, what is written by the news agencies, you know, and they just follow that report. You know, if they just never hear about a press conference at the National Press Club, how could they ever write a report on it? Of course, they will stick to the news of the United Nations and Mrs. Hoffman ruling the world.
Everyone have their pitchforks and shotguns. Let's be
very,
ready.
very valid point, but I think we have to move on.
Yes, I would like to thank you, gentlemen, for this evening. I found your presentations very stimulating and making me more curious. But my question is for my fellow attendees. You can have a break for a minute. We all came tonight, I assume, because we are somewhat curious about this field, about UFOs. And I want to know what caused the curiosity. And just from a show of hands, has anybody in this room had any type of an encounter that stimulated the curiosity to come here tonight? Thank you for your honesty and courage.
That's at least a third of the people, look like. At least 1/3.
Oh yeah, just a quick question for Robert. This might be a little weird, but have you come across anything in your research in Germany about Hitler's UFOs and
No.
the Second World? No, nothing at all.
And I'm not actively pursuing that subject for a couple of reasons. First of all, I hate everything that all the news stories about World War II. I just can't hear it anymore. You know, I don't want. You know, I was born in 1978. It was so many years after World War II. You know, and on the German mass media, we are constantly being bombarded with Hitler's darkest secrets tonight. You know, don't miss it. And Hitler's helping people, and Hitler's da-da-da, and da-da-da. You know, and I just don't like it. I just don't like the subject anymore. I think, you know, that's the first thing. Okay, the second thing is that even if you would seriously, and there are a couple of examples of such researchers in Germany, even if you seriously consider the possibility that the Nazis at that time had very advanced military technology, that they were even, and you only, you know, if you only try to research whether they had that or not, you know, you're very easily being displayed as a Nazi yourself just because you deal with that question. And that is also one of the reasons why I don't. But you know, I mean, I'm constantly being asked that question about Hitler and Nazi flight technology, and yeah, maybe maybe the time will be ripe soon to talk about that. Yes, yes.
We had to stop this event 5 minutes ago, so.
Okay.
We have.
Okay, we are. I'm sorry, we are not
short questions.
We are not time travelers.
The Germans were working on disc-shaped airframes in World War II. Many of us now know this. That's been confirmed, and how far they went is another issue. Then again, the whole issue of the Glock, the Bell, and how successful that was, and all we have are stories. Maybe reality, but we don't know.
I have a question. I read galactic channelings, amongst other things, and they talk about disclosure being just around the corner, and they've done that for some time. What do you think about this? Is the disclosure just around the corner?
If there's disclosure, you can be sure it'll be filled with lies. There won't be a truthful disclosure. It'll happen because the powers that be are forced into it by us, by an event that's out of their control. The CIA and all of our allies are not going to walk away from the table just because they're now forced into talking about it. They will not give up. So the disclosure is not the end of anything. It's the beginning of a whole new struggle for truth. As far as channeled messages predicting this, look, I used to completely discount all I still discount most of it. But I will acknowledge that the human mind, just as Robert said, consciousness is key. I agree. So who knows, really? But all of these predictions, I just want to slap every predictor. I'm tired of it. Predictions is the bane of this field. It is the bane of this field when people make these predictions, because they're always wrong, every one of them. And so I don't really pay attention to channeled predictions at all.
Last question.
Have they back engineered any of those UFOs, let's say the one from Roswell?
Short answer, I would say yes, I believe they have. I know we're short on time, but I firmly believe that's been one of the major reasons for secrecy on this topic. Because it's not just knowledge of other beings that are here. It's possession of the technology, which must never be shared. Because if you have this, and you let the world know you have it, it becomes very difficult not to share it with all the other people that you don't want to have it. Instead, if you have monopoly over it, you've got a great money maker, and you've got power, and you have the future in your hands.
Okay, we could go on for days and days and days with this subject. We have to stop now, and it's running really late. Thank you very much for coming. I was so happy that so many came. Thank you very much.